And hello, everyone. Welcome to the FPH Weekly, Full Press Hockey Weekly, here on twitch.tv/full press coverage and twitter.com/full press NHL. It is Tuesday, November 16th. Mike Straw here with you, as always, the one, the only Chris Wassel. Chris, we're going to try, after the last few weeks of what we've had, we're going to try and get back to some hockey talk. But it's not even some good hockey talk for the most part because of what we're talking about today. But before I get into what we're talking about, how are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm a little bit sad. I mean, we have a Rangers player who finally scores a goal after elbowing my goalie, and somehow that's okay. And now everybody in New York City thinks he's the hottest thing since sliced bread because he beat a career AHL goaltender. And what's next? The Islanders are going to give up 4 goals in a period. Oh wait, that might have actually happened tonight. So never mind. I'm just gonna slink back and pretend like I never got the COVID booster shot this afternoon because that seems like when it all went bad.
Yeah, I get mine. I get mine tomorrow, and I am over the moon excited.
I can tell you I am 8 hours in, and so far at least, all I feel is 2 things. One, my arm feels like I got punched about 20 times.
Yeah.
And 2, I feel insanely hungry and still want to keep eating. Like I've eaten legitimately half a carrot cake.
I've heard it's not as bad as the second dose. The second dose hit me a little bit, not too bad. What I'm really hopeful is that I finally get either the microchip or I get my third arm. So imagine
you want the
arms. Boost. No, give me the forearms. Make me Goro from Mortal Kombat at this point, man. Let me Goro. Go. Let me have this, man. Anyway,
I want the Goro effect.
It's funny you bring that up because that's partially what we're talking about. We have the Pittsburgh Penguins being for sale. I mean, there's been rumblings for years, but we'll get into that more. Not a somewhat surprising ownership group coming aboard as the possible suitors. What that means for the league, what that means for the current ownership and everything surrounding it with certain allegations and sexual assault court proceedings, including what dropped today. The Ottawa Senators have had games rescheduled due to COVID. We will be joined at around 8:15 or so by Full Press Hockey's Murray Pam, our resident Ottawa Senators reporter, to talk about all things Ottawa, what this means for the team, what this can possibly mean for the league. We're going to talk as a piggyback the NHL Olympics. Possibility of it not happening. We have until December to make that decision, or the league does. Will it happen? And then we're 1 month into the season, and it's been a weird month so far, and we're going to talk about our early season surprises, but we're going to dive right into it. Today, Wall Street Journal dropped, and it was news that isn't surprising. You've been following the Penguins for years, but news at the same time that the Pittsburgh Penguins are likely to be the next franchise sold, as Fenway Sports Group, the owners of the Boston Red Sox, are in, quote, advanced talks to buy the Pittsburgh Penguins from Mario Lemieux and Ron Burkle. Now, this news came out. Now, a little backstory. Back in 2015, it was reported by Bob McKenzie that Burkle and Lemieux had hired Morgan Stanley to explore the possibility of selling some or all of the franchise. So we kind of had these rumblings for the past 6 years, half decade or so. But now it seems like it's going to happen. So my first thought is, before we get into the new ownership, as you hear my dryer buzz in the background, completely forgot that was on. Before we get into the new ownership and what they're going to have to deal with, what do you think? Do you think that everything going on with the sexual assault allegations and the court proceedings and the settlement and all of that, I mean, it's kind of weird that a settlement gets announced and then a week later, oh, by the way, they're close to selling the team. We know negotiations for buying the team have been ongoing. They don't just happen in one day and then you buy the team. But it awfully happened it seemingly is finalizing pretty quick after they had to pay an undisclosed amount likely in the settlement last week. So, Chris, I asked you, what did you make of the news that it looks like Lemieux and Burkle are going to actually sell the Penguins after saving them in Pittsburgh almost 2 decades ago?
I'm not that surprised because this kind of was always the end game with Mario anyway. He wasn't going to stay as an owner forever. He knew that. He figured it was an investment, and he was going to, see how this went. Did I expect this to last 2 decades? No, I really didn't. I thought there were several other points in all this where Mario would have sold the team. Now, to sit there and say of all teams, the Fenway Sports Group, which leads into a whole bunch of god awful jokes, spanning from everything you can name it, but that's not what we're here for. Mario is not going to, at the same time, Mike, sit there and leave this team in a position of vulnerability. With these, let's face it, with the sexual assault allegation being settled, it made the team a lot easier to sell. It was probably something that was holding it up, for the lack of a better term, at that juncture. And once that was settled, this came out very quickly, and I'm not that surprised.
And for those that don't know, Fenway Sports Group don't just own the Boston Red Sox. They also they own something that might be a little bit bigger than the Boston Red Sox if you have to ask a lot of people around the world, and that's Liverpool Football Club of the Barclays or English Premier League.
EPL, the English Premier League.
You have their owners of Nesson, the Fenway Sports Management Group, and then Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, as it will be known in 2022, with Brad Keselowski coming aboard as part owner. RFK Racing. Yeah, I don't know. I like Brad Keselowski, but anything associated with Fenway, I immediately root against. Sorry, not sorry.
It's a reflex.
Anything associated with the city of Boston immediately has my utter and forever dislike, including Ian. He may pay me, but I have a strong dislike for him. And with that note, this is the last episode of FPH Weekly, hosted by myself and Chris.
Where is the buzzer?
Chris will be by himself. Yeah. Anyway,
I've done worse. I've already done worse. People have to understand. Look, I'm the one person that legitimately sat there and said Sidney Crosby could be traded for 10 first-round draft picks and put it on HF boards as a fun joke, just to see what would happen. And people actually went with it and tried to champion this as an idea in Calgary media. So, I mean, look, yeah, you could do far worse, Mike. I mean, far, far worse. Now,
right?
Like we mentioned, you know what the interesting thing is? Maybe I missed this, Mike. I didn't see a dollar amount attached.
There's been nothing attached. My guess is nothing will be attached for a long while, or not a long while, for the next day or so. If it comes out,
like a long time.
So let's go through a little bit of history here for a minute. Burkle and Lemieux bought the Penguins in 1999. And they basically supported, they saved it. For all intents and purposes, they saved it. You could say Crosby saved it too, which I think maybe yes. But there is they were on the verge of bankruptcy back in 99. Everybody knows that. For as bad as everybody seems to remember the Thrashers, and I think people remember them because they did move. The Sabres were right there in the early 2000s. I think Pittsburgh was probably just as bad as Buffalo was. The Mellon Arena was falling apart. They needed a new place. They needed ownership that actually wanted to spend money. Everything just fell off after those cup years. It just went down straight downhill. On top of that, Lemieux having to retire early, or forcing early retirement because of cancer. It just all kind of, that was his way to stay in the game. Obviously, we know he came back, played for a few more years, played really well, all things considering. And he bet. Now, when they bought the Penguins, do you remember off the top of your head? I have it here, and I want to see if you remember. I want to see if anybody else watching how much they bought the Penguins for in 1999.
So that was the thing that always screwed me up. I was always just under the assumption that it was just a undisclosed creditor amount, but there is, you're right, there is an actual amount, and I don't remember it handily.
$107 million.
I was close. I knew it was around 100, but there was like a sort of weird amount that
it is so minuscule that it's insane.
Crazy, right?
Because now they are valued at $845 million, which is about the middle of the pack for valuation. I mean, in a Rust Belt city, that's as good as you are going to get. And they can't be anything, and it's because they're successful on the ice. Plain and simple. They've made the playoffs, I think 17 straight years. If things keep going, they're well on their way to topping that Detroit record or that Detroit run. But we'll see of what happens. Now, before we move on, Fenway Sports Group has been known in the past to want to expand their ownership. Back in April, Sam Kennedy, according to ESPN, said that, quote, "We're a huge admirer of the NBA and obviously the NHL. It represents a natural place for Fenway Sports Group to look." So they have expressed interest in the past in what's going on and buying a team. Now, during the pandemic, it's not excuse. There's no denying attendance is down with open arenas. Revenue is down. Granted, they're getting a big boost with 2 brand new major television deals kicking off this year, but they are going to look for some money. And if you're an NHL owner, then you're not making a lot of profit unless you're Toronto or a New York Rangers. That is, you're really, unless you're one of these major organizations, you're not making a lot of money. Even the Penguins aren't making a lot of money.
No,
every team is in the red because of the past 2 years. Like there's no way they're not. Every single team, and don't let anybody else fool you. But you do have a lot of teams getting protection loans. I think the Penguins, according to this, was they took a $4.8 million paycheck triple P loan 2020, which didn't sit well, but do what you got to do as long as it went to the right things. It's not really what I want to discuss. Of course, we wonder the first thing someone thinks before we get Murray in here. First thing someone usually thinks when an ownership transition is, what's the future of the team in the city? Mm-hmm. Obviously, Arizona was most recently the last team sold, but the Pittsburgh Penguins aren't going anywhere. Let's be real. Mario Lemieux is not going to sell a team to an ownership group that moves them, and they're not going to move them to Boston because they already got the Bruins.
Yeah. Right
they
now,
have a great arena, a beautiful arena. I mean, it is one of my favorite arenas in the league. Not the best, but one of my favorite from a modern arena standpoint.
But there's lots of things to like. There's Permanis, there's Pickles.
Permanis is not that good, and I will die on that hill. It is overrated. It is straight trash.
They do have 1 or 2 sandwiches that almost make up. Almost.
Yeah, almost.
That's the key. That's the key point in this. And this is what I say to people. It's like you go to a place and you expect it to be something that it's not. But there are a few things usually in that place that make you go, okay. Like, for example, you go to Roy Rogers, you get the chicken. You get the roast beef. A lot of the other things aren't so good, aside from if you go to certain places in New Jersey that have what I like to call gimmick things, like a Captain Crunch peanut butter milkshake that is like just unbelievable.
Diabetes in a cup.
Yeah, it is, but it's ridiculous. It's that good. But this is kind of the same thing with Pittsburgh. The one thing to make clear, according to the DK Pittsburgh sports report that I read, and talking to Dejan and some of the guys from there that broke the story originally, Mario is expressly going to retain his minority interest in the Penguins
which is
everything will be
good.
fine.
Not surprising. He's not. It's just one of those get him out of making a majority.
They're getting Burkle out basically.
And
that's what
of,
this is all coming down to.
So yeah, if you're a Penguins fan, don't worry. We'll obviously have more as the story unfolds over at fullpresshockey.com. But now we're going to switch gears to the Ottawa Senators because they've had their 3 games postponed due to COVID outbreaks. 10 players in the league's protocol. The NHL announced on Monday, quote, as an appropriate precaution, the team's training facilities have been closed effective immediately and will remain closed for players until further notice. The league is in the process of reviewing and revising the Senators' regular season schedule. The Senators organization has and will continue to follow all recommended guidelines aimed at protecting the health and safety of its players, staff, and community at large, as set by the NHL, local, provincial, and national agencies. So they played back-to-back games against Pittsburgh and Calgary, 2 games that probably should not have been played. Their next scheduled game is Monday against Colorado on the 22nd. And for more on the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Ottawa Senators, I'm still in the last segment. We're bringing in FPC Senators reporter Murray. Hey. Pam, how are you? Thank you for joining us here tonight on FPH Weekly.
Here. First time here. Looking forward to it. It's a mess here. It's. I heard you guys were getting your booster shots earlier on the show.
Yeah.
You guys. We're not there yet. I'm in Quebec, and we're able to start booking, I believe, for my age group in about a week and a half or so. So we're getting there.
My age group isn't even qualified usually, but because of health conditions, I qualify. So I'm going to take advantage of that. And like I said, I'm one of the ones I want. Give me Goro. I will say this. I'll preach this. If I wake up on Thursday and I have like another arm just here, if I have a second right hand because I'm right-handed, you have any idea how happy I'll be? Now, if I wake up with another left hand, I might be kind of bummed. But I guess I'll have to become ambidextrous. So, Murray, we're going to dive right into this. What the hell is going on in Ottawa that they were able to have such a breakout? And it's not like the league isn't vaccinated. The NHL has touted that everybody but one player, and we know who that one player is.
Yes.
And so that means all the Senators are vaccinated. What happened and how could this have happened? Granted, we know the vaccine is not 100% effective. No vaccine ever is. But for an outbreak like this, when 1 or 2 people, why didn't the Senators kind of try and stop this as it started?
They did, but what happened originally was obviously they went out to Dallas. It was actually their first road trip in a year and a half, right? Because last season they played in Canada.
Yeah,
and they went out to Dallas. I'm sure, I don't know what happened there, but obviously Dallas is one of those. Texas is a state, obviously, where there's let's it is what it is, and there's no map. Exactly. So we'll go with that. But they were in Dallas. They went to Chicago. They went to Dallas, I believe, a day early. So they had an extra day, half day, whatever, in Dallas. On the weekend after the Dallas game, they went to Chicago. They had a back-to-back in Minnesota. They came back, and it was a few days later. And then Austin Watson was the first to go in COVID protocol. And that was after a game November 4th in Vegas, who coincidentally have 2 players now in COVID protocol 11, 12 years later.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have happened anywhere for those guys, but we don't know, correct? So Austin Watson goes into COVID protocol on the 5th of November. They actually play Tampa at home on a Saturday, the next day. There was all the players tested negative on Saturday. Obviously, Austin Watson was positive on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
All the players were tested twice on Saturday. They tested negative. They played the game. Sunday, Nick Holden and associate coach Jack Capuano go into protocol. And then it snowballed from there.
Yeah.
Now, the situation, why obviously it spread. Probably because they played the game on Saturday, I would think. and it just continued from there. But it wasn't like the San Jose situation where you had 7 players get, test positive all at once, and you're able to call up you can isolate from the situation. You bring in your minor leaguers from the Barracuda. But in Ottawa's case, it was 1 here, 2, another 1, 2. So there was continual. I guess it was maybe dormant. We don't know how. We don't know the science of everything. So what happens is it may take a certain amount of days to come out in one person, and then another person's different, and it just moved on and on. But they continued to play the games. So that was an issue, obviously. And then they go on a road trip to Boston, obviously again, where more players test positive. And they were kind of lucky that Victor Mete and Josh Brown are Canadian citizens. They were allowed to drive back from Boston and cross the border into Canada. And they had to go to a designated location where they would provide an address to customs and drive straight to that location. Now, if you were a non-Canadian, let's say Brady Tkachuk or Josh Norris or somebody, or one of the non-Canadian obviously players tested positive in Boston, they would still be in Boston right now.
Yeah.
That was like the Blake Wheeler issue when he couldn't go back to Winnipeg because he wasn't Canadian, basically. That's what it came down to. So unfortunately, and then what happens is here, they were actually testing 2-3 times a day, all week long. And as you saw the situation with Nikita Zaitsev and Drake Batherson this week,
I'm gonna interrupt you for a second because that's kind of what I want to bring up, the testing, because Bruce Garrich of the Ottawa Sun reported, it was one of his stories recently about this, is that one of the big issues was the fact that one test is providing positives and then another is showing negatives, so things aren't consistent. So is it, and this could lead to, it's like, okay, well then if the negative comes in after, it's like, oh, it's a false positive, everybody goes on their way.
Correct.
And this is a thing. Do you think this is a league thing where they're just utilizing the wrong test, or what could have led to this testing fiasco, for the lack of a better term?
Well, DJ Smith said on the weekend that he believes the tests are reliable. I know he's towing the line with the NHL, but in hindsight, we don't know if they're reliable. And I don't want to say yes or no, but you're getting different results. Now, I believe, you can quote me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the tests are supplied by the NHL. You buy them from the league, I believe.
That's my understanding, is that the league has a partner or whatever to provide them, and the teams buy them individually.
So the weird thing is, why is this happening to the Ottawa Senators and not other teams? It's kind of a...
There is an odd sort of thing, and obviously tonight it came out that Lars Eller tested positive for COVID, so he's now in the protocol for Washington, which opens up another can of just Pandora's box. Oh, gee, Pittsburgh, hey, I want to put this out there now, just in advance, so it's out there. Sidney Crosby 10 years ago, I don't have mumps. What if this happens again? I don't have COVID.
Yeah,
exactly. And I'll go back to just briefly the Nikita Zaitsev issue. Nikita Zaitsev tested positive in the middle of the week. He tested negative before the game, and he was allowed to, I believe he was allowed to play one game. And then the next day he tested positive again just before the game, and he was removed from the lineup. Now, Drake Batherson, another situation, on Saturday morning, he did not take the morning skate against Pittsburgh. He tested positive in the morning. He took a test later that day and tested negative. And a few hours later, he took another test and also tested negative. He was allowed to play Saturday night, and Drake Batherson picked up 4 points. He got 2 goals and 2 assists. Sunday morning, he tests positive again. And obviously, they do not allow him to play against Calgary on Sunday. The game was at 5 o'clock. So, again, the tests are, I don't know how they're getting, like where those results are coming, like who's determining the results and everything. But it's I just find it a little bit strange to get this amount of variances with one hockey team.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird that it would be contained to one hockey team. I mean, we can all blame Dallas. We can blame Texas. It's easy to blame Texas for everything. But it is weird that it's all contained. I'm surprised that they've been the only team to have these issues. Who knows what happens? Maybe what ends up happening. Maybe the Ottawa Senators are the only team that goes, all right, you got a positive, you had a negative, but we're going to test you one more time. Where other teams who know, we don't know. This is purely speculation on my part. They test positive, they retest, it's negative, and they just go by that negative. They don't even retest again because, okay, well, one was different. They take the most recent as long as it's a no.
From
and we don't know.
No, from what I'm gathering, if you got a positive test in the morning, they were waiting to get 2 negatives before you step on the ice.
Yeah.
So I can say that the 2 tests that they had later in the day were both rapid tests, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I would believe. And as soon as they got the 2 negatives, they were allowed to play once again. I spoke to one Senators employee on Sunday, and he basically told me the first thing they do is as soon as they get to the door, they enter the building and they get that swab. So it's not a fun place to be right now.
Understandably so.
Michael Dozzato, he spoke up Sunday and post game, and you could see Sunday the guys you could tell the players, they were burnt. DJ Smith was burnt. They were, at the end of the rope. Yeah. And it was a good thing they actually did call, had to postpone the games. But Michael Dozzato, and it's obvious though, a lot of guys have young families. DJ Smith has 2, I think he has like a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Yeah, 2 young kids.
Zach Burke has just newborn twins, goalie coach Zach Burke. There's a lot of players. Obviously, Matt Murray has 2 children. I think they're ages 2 and 1. And he has COVID now. So what was going on is these guys are actually now they're living in hotels. So the players are separating, and they're stressed out. They're not, they don't want to go home. They almost don't want to come to the rink, but they also don't want to go home. And they're mentally, drained, and it's become hard just, to play hockey itself. And you could see that on Sunday, especially.
Agreed. It's a situation now with these 3 games that, and Murray, like before we let you go, we're going to transition quick to the Olympics.
Right.
This is going to be, the NHL has to reschedule. Now they, in the schedule with the Olympic break, they have windows where they can throw in games, but they do have to make a decision by mid-December. If they have to come out and say end of the week, because they got to make a decision. My guess is by Friday on Monday's game against Colorado. If they have to start postponing more Senators games, how much in jeopardy do you think that alone puts the NHL sending players over to China?
Oh, I think it jeopardizes it quite a bit. I mean, we can see like what might happen to Vegas. They have 2 players in COVID. 2 players in protocol. You said Lars Ellers tonight. I mean, it's on and on and on. And you got a condensed schedule where there's just not much room. I mean, you can schedule, let's say, the East Coast game. So you got tonight, Ottawa would have been in Jersey. The Rangers would have been in Ottawa on Saturday. You could probably find, a 3 and 4 somewhere where you have a day both teams are off, or you can juggle something. But you can't juggle the games. That's why the game was played against LA. That's why the game was played against Calgary. You can't juggle these cross-country games because the way the schedule is built, when LA is going to sweep in, they're going to play Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, maybe Buffalo all at once. That's it. They're going to stay out west. So it's going to be, it's going to be hard for those type of teams to continue, especially in a run of COVID. Yeah. And I just looked at the schedule myself. Ottawa has a 4-day window, I believe, in March, but I don't know about the other teams.
And that's the big thing. They got to move.
Yeah, New Jersey's schedule starts to get a little scrambled as well.
And I'm sure, Chris, you've seen it with New Jersey, and Mike, you've seen Buffalo's schedule. There's no time off. They're playing 3-4 days a week all season long due to the Olympics.
Yeah.
There's no gap this year. There's nothing. The gap is February.
Yeah, the Sabres have a small gap of maybe an extra few days. They have like a 4 or 5 day window at the beginning of January if something were to happen, but that's so soon. You have that Olympic break. You have that 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks. But yeah, there's really not it. You can maybe squeeze in a game here and there, but then you're making teams have to have to play 4 games in 6 nights type of thing. And the league does not want that again. There's no way they're going to try and do that. If worse comes to worse, they'll just add what I think ultimately happens if this keeps going down. This is a league that saw they could have success with late summer, early summer hockey. Mm-hmm. They'll just add on whatever games need to be made up right after the regular season ends.
Yeah, that's a very good possibility.
They did it last year. It's Stanley Cup playoffs are going, and for some reason they were having Vancouver and Calgary play each other in the middle of the first round.
Actually, yeah.
Let's have a little overlapping hockey.
I mean, I'm not going to complain more hockey, but we've seen the league not worry about doing that if they have to make up games with teams that don't even make the playoffs for positioning or whatever, rather than take winning percentage for draft picks. So it's not out of the possibility in my mind. Do I think the league should go? No. We have talked about this ad nauseum on this show. The league shouldn't go. One, I'm not a fan of going to the Olympics anyway. I'm still like the Olympics should not have professionals. Always have been when it comes to football, soccer, whatever it may be. 2, they definitely shouldn't be going to China because it's a whole nother reason. And it's not even a COVID thing why I don't think they should go to China. Though that's part of it because we don't know. They're so secretive and everything. We don't know how they're controlling everything. And the injuries obviously is the big thing. Like it's just, there's a lot of reasons why not to go. I get the players wanting that their country on their chest. I get that, especially from players who are from smaller European countries. I fully understand it, but I don't think it's a good idea.
2000? No, I don't either. 2006. I'll give you an example. The Ottawa Senators, 2006, were on a roll. And you could see it. The team was stacked. They were going to make a long playoff run. Their goaltender was Dominik Hasek.
What team ended that run that year?
Oh, I know. Steve Shields, whatever. but Dominik Hasek on the Senators. He was lights out. I can't remember what his average was, but it was like it was in like the 150s.
It was insane.
It was ridiculous. The save percentage was like 940 something. I was off the top of my head, but it was insane. Pulls his groin at the Olympics. Never played another game, and that was it for the Ottawa Senators. I mean, Ray Emery did his best. I mean, he was kind of thrown into the fire, but
I mean, there's a difference going from arguably the greatest goaltender to ever play the game
to basically a rookie goalie.
To a rookie goalie expected to be like, hey, this team's good. Get ready.
Exactly. My personal feeling, I totally agree with you, Mike, about the Olympics. Political reasons, I've been on Twitter about it on and off. I don't get any feedback when I actually make those points. Everyone kind of ignores it. But
they kind of run away from it a little.
There was 2 Canadians held in China, as we know, and they've since been back home, thankfully. But I've been advocating since then, and we know everything else. So, bottom line is, I don't think they should be going, especially there, for political reasons. But also the amateur thing. I thought I liked the last one when great story like Chris Kelly and some of these guys. That they were great stories, and they were like the old, back in the early 90s, the 80s. You got your Miracle on Ice. That's the kind of thing you want to see at the Olympics. I know people want to see best on best, but you can have best on best. You can have World Cup tournaments in the summer. I know it's going to be hard with when the summer's shorter, but maybe a year or two away from from now.
I personally loved the World Cup of Hockey. I loved it. I loved it a few years ago. Like, I'd be okay with that. Like, we have the World Championships every year, but I'd be okay with that too, coming back instead of the Olympics, that every 4 years we have that instead. But we don't know what's going to happen. But Murray, we want to thank you for joining us. You can find Murray on Twitter at Pammer Hockey. Find his work at fullpresshockey.com. He is all over the place covering the Senators, and he's just all around. He's everywhere. He's the one you see tweeting all the time. He's the face behind the Full Press Hockey Twitter account. So again, thank you, Murray.
He puts up with us.
Yeah, right. I try and stay in the shadows. I just have to be dealt with. Ian deals with me a lot. I have to be dealt with on air. So that when people have to be like, they can't really say what they want.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's great chat, and I'll see you guys on the site.
Definitely.
Okay.
Thank you, Murray. Have a good one.
All right. So we're gonna transit. We're just going because we had a long show. Well, 1 month in.
So, hey, Mike. So now we know a few things. We know the magic number. The magic number is 10.
Yep.
And that's what got hit last year with Buffalo, New Jersey, etc.
Yep.
One odd thing that I do want to point out to listeners out there, and this is where this is going to get extremely weird. The safest place right now may not be Canada. It may be the worst place for COVID right now. And it's not because of anything that Canadians are doing. This has to be made clear. It's not their fault. It's not really anyone's fault. There is no rhyme or reason for how this is going to spread now that we're almost 2 years in.
It's like we're hitting locally. Locally, we're hitting a fourth wave. Like, we're hitting numbers. Okay, and granted, I always like to look at the deaths, and I don't want to get too far into the COVID thing here, but I always like to look at the deaths, and the deaths are a lot lower. I mean, it's still no one should die, but people are going to die every day anyway. It's just life. It sucks. I hate it.
There's positives. There's positives to be had. Like,
so I look at that like, okay, good. Most of the people, at least in this region, aren't vaccinated that are ending up hospitalized. The people who do test positive and are vaccinated, usually just a couple days and they're fine. But it's one of those things of it's tiring, man. We are legit about to be 2 years into this thing, and it's just over it. I'm over it. We're all over it.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what else is over? The first month of the season.
Can you believe it?
It's been a hell. It's been a hell of a month. A very hectic month. NHL officiating is at its worst. I feel like officiating across all sports has been terrible. NHL officiating is terrible. I do want to let people know who are listening. Alexander Barkov of the Florida Panthers left the game with a knee injury after taking a knee-on-knee hit, and it does not look good.
Do not look at the video.
Don't look at it. They did get a 5-minute major out of it, but it's not Mayfield. And he got a game misconduct. It's just not good. Hopefully it's just something he can come back from, because he is the heart and soul of that Panthers team without a doubt. And they go as he goes. I don't care what people say. It can be the goaltender or whatever, but it is one of those amazing things and amazing in a bad way, of how quickly things can change in this league, because that can turn a season around, even though they are up 5-1 on the Islanders right now as we're recording this Tuesday night. But Chris, first month of the season, biggest surprise. We're going to do two: biggest surprise, biggest disappointment. We'll start with your biggest we'll start with your biggest disappointment, because I like to end things on a positive.
Absolutely. I mean, look, the biggest disappointment right now, and understandably, yes, they've had this ridiculously long road trip that no team should have. Oh, wait, I've seen teams that have had this and done okay.
I just look at every year. There's always, in the NBA at least, the San Antonio Spurs circus road trip. So
yes, And this is how it kind of has to be looked at, to be put in perspective. But it has to be the Islanders offense or lack thereof. And there's little things there's disappointments within the disappointment that make it that much worse. But think about this for 1 second, and this is a pretty sobering stat. Kevin Gibson from Sportsnet Research came up with this one the other day, and I forgot it completely. The Islanders as a team have 1 goal from their defense. 1. That's one sobering stat. The other one is only 9 different Islanders have scored a goal this year. So that means there is more than half the team that has forgotten to hit the goal sanctuary.
That to put that in perspective, and I like to compare teams to the Sabres because if you're worse than the Sabres at anything, I like until the Sabres prove otherwise, the Sabres are the bar of bad. The Sabres have, at my count, 10, 15 different players with a goal.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Hagg has a goal. Colin Miller has now 2 goals.
I'm scared.
It's one of those. Yeah, the Islanders disappointing. That division we all knew was going to be the toughest division in hockey. It's there's no doubt that it will remain that way. For me, I think the biggest disappointment. I'm not actually no. I'm going to talk about this as a different segment. They're not a disappointment because I talked about it during our season preview, and I knew how bad it was going to be. I think the Colorado Avalanche are the biggest disappointment because they are a team built to win this year, and they can't do a thing. They can't defend. They can't score. They can't stop the puck from entering their own net.
They can't keep them getting injured now.
They can't. Yeah, they can't do.
It's all going wrong.
Thing. Literally, they are Murphy's Law right now in hockey, and it is brutal to see because that team is as talented as a team as I have ever seen. Nate McKinnon's still out. I mean, you do have some bright spots. You do have Landeskog playing well. Obviously, you have Nazem Kadri playing really well, and not even with a great shot percentage. Like he's averaging over a point per game. He's seeing the ice really well the way he plays. He's playing how a lot of people in Toronto wanted him to always play, but he's in a situation that benefits him, so it makes sense. You got Burakovsky playing well. You got Ratnan you got a lot of players playing well, but you don't have defense that wants to do anything. Your goaltending, Darcy, their goaltending, they don't have to me a starting NHL goaltender. I don't know why Jonas Johansson is on that roster. He was terrible with the Sabres. They traded him. They managed to get something for him, and he's just as bad in Colorado as he was with Buffalo. He's got over a 4. Last I checked, he had over a 4 goals against. Kemper isn't. I mean, he's under 3, but oh boy, they just don't have anything in that back end that's really producing, and it's showing. They are just not in a good place right now. The only benefit that they have right now is that they are they're not in a weak division, but they are in a division they can come back. Granted, Nashville's playing really well. Winnipeg started really poorly, and they've just turned it on since. Minnesota's playing how we expected Minnesota to play, and St. Louis is St. Louis. They're always tough and consistent. So, I mean, they got a lot of work to do to get in those wild card spots. But again, we're only a month in. If the season ended today, they wouldn't be in, but it's not out of the realm of possibility for them to get healthy and heat up. Okay. Your surprise.
Without a doubt, it's the Anaheim Ducks. And in particular, obviously, Troy Terry, who has gotten a point
7
tonight.
straight wins as of tonight, as entering tonight, as of November 16th. 7 straight wins.
Troy Terry is on a 14-game point streak. Ryan Getzlaf, to be fair, now look, Getzlaf played the last 2-3 years hurt.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, he's still when you're a Hall of Fame player, you are going. There's always something that's going to make you a Hall of Fame player. He's found his niche as a Joe Thornton. He will never score you goals anymore, but he will find whoever's open. He sees the the ice better than almost better than anyone in the league.
Now you want to hear the real goofball thing in all of this for people that are listening from Anaheim, because look, I was there when they won the Cup in 2007. Getzlaf is averaging more shots per game now through the first 16 games than he was 15 years ago. But he only has one goal. He has one goal on 46 shots, Mike.
Yep, what is that, a 2%?
Yeah, a little over 2%. Now, here we go. This is where it's going to get fun, because if you didn't think I was going to sneak this in somehow, and we'll do a little bit more of this next week, there's a few other players that have 40 there's a player that has more shots on goal than even Getzlaf, but he has no goals yet. And it's somebody that you might not expect.
No goals yet this year?
No goals. Defenseman has almost 50 shots on goal. Plays on a team that has scored an insane amount of goals and has two centers that you would consider to be probably the best in the league.
Can I guess? Or do you want me to wait till next week?
I mean, we could reveal it next week. I mean, I could make an Animaniacs reference that would just give it away.
We'll reveal it next week. We'll save it for next week. Maybe next week we'll talk some fun stats.
We'll tease some of the fun, because let's face it, next week it's Thanksgiving week. We want to lighten the mood, because there'll be enough going on. So, yeah. But obviously,
Anaheim, they fantastic.
It's ridiculous, because you think about what they've been through. And look, there's the Bob Murray mess, which
good, he's gone.
Pretty contained. If you think about how this could have mushroomed, and the Samuelis didn't screw up something. Now, look, I don't think
they could have afforded to.
They had to go independent with this, and I'm glad they did, because it really kept things from getting much worse.
Agreed.
And the players were able to concentrate on playing, obviously, hockey instead of having to answer questions constantly. The media has been very forthright with why they've been accommodating under the circumstances, because it is a young team, aside from Getzlaf and Henrique and a couple of the other veterans. And now, if you're Anaheim, this is where it gets crazy. There was a lot of talk about several players absolutely being traded well before the trade deadline.
I don't see how you can if your team's playing like this. Granted, we've seen teams go on winning streaks like this and fall apart. We saw Buffalo. We saw Philadelphia.
Yep.
Like
we saw the Rangers early in the 2000s. Rangers. They were first in the East, and they wound up missing the playoffs by double digits.
It's not often, but it does happen more often than you'd think. So it's one of those things. Yeah, they what's insane to me is seeing a player like you talked about, Ryan Getzlaf, but another player that's kind of surprised me with his play, and I know he's probably surprised you because you know him very well, is Adam Henrique. Where the hell did this come from? He was a throw-in in every deal he's been a part of. No one wants him, and now he's third on the team in points.
Hey, the
good for him.
As my old next door neighbor said, Portuguese pride in full effect here. Oh dear. I mean, look, Adam's one of the nicest guys you'll ever talk to, and even he probably doesn't have an explanation for why this is happening, but it is. And he's gone on runs like this in his career. So it's not completely out of character. It's just out of character because of what people presumed how bad this Anaheim team was going to be, and probably us included as well. And you just never could have known that this was going to happen.
No.
And look, 13 points in 16 games. He's averaging 3 shots a game. Here's where this starts getting to be ridiculous. And I don't know how long this can sustain itself. And you know what? I don't care, just because it's been a long enough period of time. He's never had possession numbers like this, other than maybe like that. Other than that one segment of time in New Jersey that the Ranger fans still cry about.
Yeah, I think that was the most I remember him like playing this well is that finals run against the Kings.
Yeah, and that was his rookie year.
Yeah,
So-
and everybody's like, oh my God, we just struck gold. Granted, they didn't, but you know what I mean? Like, good for him.
His career high, Mike, was 51 points. And that was his rookie year. He hit 50 two other times. He's hit 40 in Anaheim a couple times in a row. But people figured after like last year, and then he got waived at one point, and it was getting a little bit weird that maybe that's it. But this year it's just ridiculous. I mean, you look his possession relative numbers are double digits above the team average. I know it's only 16 games in. Look, I get that. A lot can change.
100%. But
that is ridiculous.
Yeah. And for me, so we're kind of running out of time, running low on time.
Aren't we always?
Yeah, always. My biggest surprise, because I thought their goaltending would falter, is Carolina. Rod Brindamore, like, whatever he does, good for him, because they're playing. I mean, their goal differential 20. Like, they're just a dominant team right now. Carolina, even with the losses to Florida, like Florida is another dominant team, but Carolina, Detroit is a big surprise to me. If I'm going to go individual players, yeah, Frederick Anderson having that 178 goals against, huge surprise. Lucas Raymond, wasn't expecting him to be the productive player that he is right now as a rookie. He's been fantastic for Detroit, and he's a big reason. Yeah, you got Tyler Bertuzzi, who's scoring goals whenever he closes his eyes. Not as good as another player I'm going to talk about in a minute, but Tyler Bertuzzi is looking good. Detroit just looks good. Detroit is my one team like no one thought of, and they're not like a great world beater team, but they're playing a lot better. Steve Yzerman has this team going where it needs to go, and Steve Yzerman again is proving why. Even right now, he is going to go down at the end of the day. He's one of the best players. He's going to go down as an all-time great GM if this keeps up.
Oh, absolutely. And Moritz Seider, we thought was an absolute reach at number 6 in the draft, and he's laughing at us now.
Yeah, that's why we don't make decisions.
He's developed and leads them. Look, we're never going to get it right all the time, and I'm kind of glad we don't.
The only one who does apparently is Steve Yzerman.
Yeah, clearly he has something magic sort of.
He's got his Steve's secret stuff.
But also don't forget, just because we have other surprises along the way, honorable mentions, if you will. Jonathan Quick, huh? I mean, who poured the magic sauce into his drink, and suddenly Jonathan Quick is 2012 Jonathan Quick again.
Yeah, I mean the Kings still are pretty bad. they're 8-5. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10.
They're going to be treading water before long as the schedule condenses.
Yeah, I don't see them as a playoff team.
Teams that are kind of like that, where it's like they're doing really well right now. They're a huge surprise, but it's like.
So we're gonna wrap up this show. I want to talk about a couple things that aren't surprising, kind of what either you expected, I expected, or we all expected. We're gonna start with the Oilers real quick, and Leon Draisaitl. My God, is just he's otherworldly. We know Connor McDavid, but I don't know why. We've seen this just as much as we've seen out of McDavid. I don't know why I'm surprised with Draisaitl. I'm in love with this man as a player. He's averaging over 2 points a game. He's got 31 points in 14 games. The guy has 15 goals. Oh, by the way, Alex Ovechkin, everybody thought he'd start to slow down. No, not even close. This guy, if you don't think he's going to break Gretzky's record, you know he's motivated by this. Ovechkin is going to break that record because this dude is motivated beyond all else to dominate. He's got his cup. He's playing lights out. Washington will always be good. It's just how it's going to be. And Ovechkin's going to be Ovechkin. But Draisaitl, that's a team. Edmonton, man, do I really hope this is the year they can make a run, because they deserve to be seen in more households. They're just such a fun team to watch. Such a fun team.
They just got to get past a team like Winnipeg.
Yeah,
they really do. Winnipeg has something on them. And we're kind of seeing
Paul
it a little
Maurice,
bit even
Paul
tonight.
Maurice's coaches. It's pretty impressive. Yeah, Winnipeg's up on Edmonton. Another thing that doesn't surprise me, and I talked about it right at the beginning of the year, and it took Jim aback, and he had to like think about it, and he came back to my side. Seattle being bad. Who would have thought based on who? To me, it's not even with the players they drafted. Who would have thought based on the coach? When they hired Ron Francis as GM, I knew failure, absolute failure as a G. He's not good. I don't like him. Like I'd have more trust in Tim Murray and Jason Botterill running things than Ron Francis, and they are terrible too. Dave Haxtell, no, should never coach in the NHL again. I don't care. He's terrible. He's no good. Bad. We saw it with Philly. We knew how it was going to be, and as soon as they hired him, my immediate thought was this team is not making the playoffs. I honestly still think Haxtell gets fired in year one. I don't care. He needs to not be there if Seattle's an expansion team, and I'm thinking, it's Atlanta bad.
Look, the numbers. Here's the funny part. They are good at what we thought they kind of would be. I mean, some of their defensive metrics are ridiculously good. Their decision making to bring in Philip Grubauer, however, no. Because Grubauer plays in a style that works, say, for a team like Colorado. It does not work for how Seattle plays.
Seattle
doesn't.
Seattle not taking the high risk, high reward players is going to bite them.
Often.
I get it, but I mean, at the end of the day, do I think those players would have worked well under Dave frickin' Haxtell? Hell no. Not a chance. No way, not no how. But I still would have taken a Vladimir Tarasenko 100% of the time. 10 times out of 10, I'm taking a Vladimir Tarasenko, even coming off the injury he's coming off of. I mean, he's got a point per game going. He's playing the way we expect Tarasenko to play. I like Giordano. Yeah, I expected that. I would have probably done the same thing. Buffalo, maybe a Jeff Skinner. It's one of these types of things. Like, I get these contracts you got to think about, but you also need skill up front. Jordan Eberle, really good for them. It's just their coaching is bad. The decisions they make of who to ice on the roster,
worse.
Yeah, we could say it nicely, worse. Like, you got Jaden Schwartz has played like we expected, kind of. Jordan Eberle, Alex Wenberg, and Jared McCann are kind of the only one. And then Brandon Tanev's done a nice little bottom six role he's found himself in. But Jonas Donskoy has been mediocre at best. Alexiak has done okay. Marcus Johansson, he's only played in 4 games. Morgan Geekie, I don't know what the obsession is with him, why he's still seeing the lineup every day. He's not playing well. He had a couple good games. Hayden Fleury is just not turning into any sort of defenseman they expected. Grubauer is bad. I'd still trust Chris Dreiger more. Sure, but he's only played in 1 game. He started, or 2 games. He's only started 1. But I still think he's the better goaltender than Grubauer. I just don't.
Yep.
Bastion, like, they have these players that you're like, all right, they're good, like mid-tier players, like second and third pair defensemen. They have a lot of really good third pair defensemen. They have a lot of good middle 6 and bottom 6 forwards. They don't have anyone to really take over, and you're not going to win games without that. Plain and simple. I don't care what they say, especially with a coach like Haxtell, who couldn't even win games when he had the talent that could take over. He had Sean Couturier, he had Jakub Voracek, he had Claude freaking Giroux, and you couldn't win with that. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not a Flyers fan, but talent, like, you recognize talent when you see talent, man. And he couldn't do anything with that.
And couldn't do anything right either.
No.
I mean, it wasn't even that they were losing, it was how badly they were losing games.
Yeah, so it's one of those things of, like, I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised with Arizona being hot garbage. I'm not surprised with Chicago being garbage. I still think they need to have their first round pick stripped of them this year, especially because it's going to be a top pick. as one of the punishments. They should have multiple first, but that's another thing. Not surprised with Ottawa. Somewhat surprised with Montreal, but not at the same time because they have no one on their roster from last year. Vegas injury bugs. So this first month has been a lot of up and down. It's shown there's a lot of parity, but we still have a lot of the way to go.
We got more than 5 months to go.
Except for the rest of this show. We don't have any more to go. This show's over. You can follow Chris on Twitter at Chris Wassel DFS. You can follow me at Mike Straw Media. Make sure you're following Full Press NHL on Twitter. Until next Tuesday, 8 p.m. here on twitch.tv/Full Press Coverage and twitter.com/Full Press NHL. For Chris, I'm Mike. Take care.